Good morning. I hope you are having a wonderful morning. Right here in Northern California, it's been really rainy, which is such a blessing. It's nice to see the balance that is actually what we want to see at this time of the year. It's usually such a hot and inflamed time, and it's so nice to see that balance out. And I am Andrea. I'm here today with DeAnna. She is an amazing Ayurvedic specialist, lymphatic specialist, and a caregiver to so many. This is Ask DeAnna Anything. So if you're joining us today, you can just bring your questions in and we're happy to have them. How are you doing this morning, DeAnna?
I'm doing really great. I am feeling like the wet blanket theory is working. I've been doing this wet blanket energetics with a lot of people, hundreds of people, really, in the last couple of years since the fires started becoming more routine in our neighborhood in October. And, I've just tried to think wet blanket. Just what is it like? Cool things off, and wet is nourishing to cooling, nourishing thoughts. And just really watching, the perpetuation of this like stirring of dry and hot that makes up, too much fire. And then the fire spreads. And I'm just feeling super good when this rain came. And I actually even got an email from a student, who was like, hey, actually I got two. I got one that was like, wet blanket emoji, kind of like playing it out. And then I got another one that was, somebody showing me their fireplace, and they, were not gonna, build a fire until it rained. And I was like, we just got to think wet blanket. And that was like 4 days before the rain. And so, yeah, I'm feeling good about just holding healthy intention. That has a lot to do with breast tissue and our bodies in general, and loving ourselves, touching ourselves, tapping in, and just trusting that there really is something you can do, and there is a positive to all negatives. And this is no different, especially nature. Nature is the finest example of this phenomena, that things, look good and things look bad, and things change, and impermanence exists. And we know when things feel good, and we know when nature looks good. And it's the same thing with us. And so, yeah, I'm excited, as you are, to have this beautiful wet blanket. I will take the cell phone not working at my house. I will take the blurbs and the details on Wi-Fi. I'll take all of that to live in nature, and have some variations of weather from season to season. We should not want just sun or just wet. We want seasons back. We want those seasons to really represent. And here we are in this beautiful season of autumn. And just so you know, autumn is a time when we fall back. This is fall, other name for it. We fall back, and it means we are falling back, not into nothing, because we got winter to hibernate if all goes well now. We have our spring forward, we have our blossoming and our flourishing of summer, and then we get into autumn, fall, back into follow through. So how are you going to make sure that everything that you sprung and blossomed has been harvested accordingly? Same thing we can do looking at our body, our projects, our life, and how we're going to meet our goals or our visions, our dreams. And the same thing we do in the garden or in nature. This is harvest season, and harvest season is spectacular. And that's why we have Thanksgiving in November. That's why we have enough food, for Christmas, or really winter solstice, so that it includes everybody, right? We have this beautiful changing of times where it's cold and the veil is thin, and there is room to just go inert like ice, like the lake in a cold environment, and allow ourselves to hibernate. But if we don't follow through right now, we don't really feel we have the right to hibernate. We have guilt and hibernate. We don't know how to rest, or we actually have too much to do and we miss the mark in the season. And then there is no time or way to hibernate. We already work more in the winter anyway. We might as well be like, 3 months to follow through. What did I start that needs buttoning up? What did I start that needs tuning, fine tuning? That way, those details are taken care of. And we know that, we're preparing for it's okay to rest and sit by my beautiful fire that is actually right next to me right now, and take care of ourselves so we can spring forward again in spring. So really, what is it to follow through? We are there once again. I talk about it every autumn, and it's the hardest one for people. We love to blossom. It's so fun to spring forward because, you get to be all, blah. This is what I have to say. Everybody come along, and people are all, yeah. But this is actually the most challenging. And so, yeah, I've been doing a lot of it myself. I invite everyone to do it. I just finished my 10-month course from 2019, pre-pandemic. You know it. And I just want to say it was a tiny little group from a very, large 20-something group. It was a tiny little group, but who cares, man? Whoever showed up are the ones who were ready to complete. And I chose to complete it. And to also show, we can start kind of being in safe groups again. And we should have been safe in groups all along. So, just how to do that. And I will be going back to in-person classes. Speaking of spring, what am I hibernating on and following through with right now? I'm finishing up clinical because I'm doing clinical in spring. My clinical foundations course is back, baby. And I'm going right back into it, and it's in person. So that one will be in Sonoma County. I'll do it again in Portugal, September, October, 2022. So I'll be teaching it twice this year, once in my lovely neighborhood and another in Portugal. So please think about joining me if you I've had so many people be like, oh, why didn't I take that class? Because it was at the grandiose DeAnna Center as we used to know it. And, you could get in the bathhouse, which, still accessible to us. So it's part of the picture. But, it was all just kind of right there in this beautiful, magical place. And now it's in other magical places. There's not just one, there's many, many magical places to teach in. And I'm very excited. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing right now. And that's my opener to ask DeAnna anything. Really, anything health related would be my choice. But I am pretty versed in the world, and I'm only me with an opinion. So please keep that in mind with these. Is I am happy to tell you my opinion, and I am happy to share what I have learned or know, or even being honest when I don't know. I don't have any issues with that. That's just, what do I have in my repertoire and what don't I? It's a growth, but I am here. I am here to answer those questions and to dive into anything. There's really no, taboo question here.
Well, I see that we have Molly with us,
Molly G.
and it's so great to see her. The really great thing is that Molly's been working with DeAnna for quite some time, and she recently worked with DeAnna to offer education about breast health and working with scar tissue and just working with the body following surgery. And the episodes of that, the audio of that actually is on the podcast now. So if you weren't able to take part in that special group, you can actually hear everything that DeAnna taught about it. And this is the month for it. This is Breast Care Awareness Month. So DeAnna's been writing on the blog about breast care, and the next blog coming up is going to be about specific tools. So DeAnna, can you talk a little more about kind of what is it like to have good breast health? What do healthy breasts feel like? And then how do you get to know your breast tissue and what tools are good to use and self-care around that?
Sure. So, breast care really came out of having my own and knowing how it feels. And mine are a little bit on the larger side, so they really do stick out in the world. And just how can I get comfortable with me? And I think all of us have that. There's no bearing on your size or how you're shaped. It really is a everybody, phenomena. And I find this with everybody's identity relation too, having issues with chest, breasts, nipples, and just feeling like, how are we going to, they're sensitive. They're sensational and they sense things. They're like little antennas. And you just really do feel, and then you feel how you feel in between. And so, something I just want to bring forward here in breast care and breast cancer awareness. And I love your biggest question here, Andrea, is how do you know what a lymph node feels like? Or like, how do you touch yourself? And it starts with that right there. You got to be willing to touch yourself, explore yourself, and get to know your breast or chest area, your center near your heart space, where your thymus gland is too, which is our innate knowing, and all of our immunity memory is stored right there at the chest. And this is where the lymph river, right below the clavicle, meets the blood stream. Yes, our lymph river, rasa, meets our bloodstream, rakta. And this is how our plasma and blood intermingle. And this is how our immunity travels through blood flow and cardio and gets wherever it needs to go to take care of us. So one of the first things is to remember that if it drains and everything meets here and it goes through the subclavian vein down into your blood supply, if it goes under the clavicle to the center of your chest and your heart is there and your heart chakra is there and your thymus gland innate knowing is there, imagine how much innate knowing you could learn from touching this region of your body. And so that's the first part. And that's brave enough. You got to, I'm going to be so proud of you if you're touching yourself right now. I'm going to be so proud of you. I don't care where you are. Scott calls me all the time, touching my breasts in public. I'm like, oh, I'm very comfortable. And I think we all should be. Why is that a problem? Touching ourselves at our heart. So what is a healthy lymph node? Shaped like an almond. It's malleable and nice and cushy, like a firm pillow texture. And you can feel its perimeters, that little almond shape. You can feel all around it. And if you really squeeze it, you'll be able to find little blood vessels coming off of it. And then you go down about another ½ inch or an inch, and boom, there's another lymph node. And then another, maybe an inch over to the left or the right. And they run in, mostly trines or in fours, in squares. I see both. And that's how our immune system does its job. So this river needs to be wide open. And if we aren't checking and getting a baseline of what feels right or wrong, or what is changing or not changing, we will never know a lump, an unhealthy lump, whether that be just a fibroid or a calcification, or whether that be a tumor that is cancerous. These are all things that could be lumps that don't feel like the lymph. If the lymph node is really clogged, because, our B cells and T cells and our foreign invaders all run through this river, and they go into the lymph node when they're hard to digest. So if things get really compacted from being sick or living with allergies or immune response in general, it puts everything on alert, and it might get really clogged. It might even be kind of soft and mushy and the size of a walnut. And that can be really scary. Or it could be super hard and even smaller than an almond. It's like you got a little pill. You got a little pill inside your tissue, and that can be a little scary. And so I'm just really putting forward the truth that exploration and early exploration really does put you on this edge of like, oh, is it okay? Is it not okay? And the thing I do want to let you know is okay, is it is okay to massage yourself and move your lymph, even if it was cancer. So I think that's a very, very important part. And it's something that I know Molly is like an incredible advocate for, like lymph after chemo every single time. She went to self-care bathhouse, she sweated, she gua sha'd, and she got a lymph massage, and a gentle one, but still she got that. And so I know from 33 years of doing this work, it helps. And I'm so glad that the Cancer Society of America now has on their website that moving your lymph and doing lymph massage does not move cancer into your body or make it travel through your body. And that was a huge, big day, which I think was like 5 or 6 years ago now. But it was a huge day for me after 33 years of kind of, gosh, this is working. Man, people want this. I'm only seeing great results. And then having this like, don't move mentality, like you do some exercise and it's going to spread. And so that's just these are the things, the fears we have to face through educating our hands and educating ourselves, our heart and our head, and just being really understanding that it doesn't work that way, and if things can change, if, in your breast or chest tissue, if you're like, oh, I did find one of those little tablets she was talking about, there is a pill in my body, or you find these up in your neck a lot and down by the vein. But if you found that, you just want to do a bunch of warm and some, little bit of like Mahanarayan oil, and you just want to do warmth, the water bottle, hot rock, baths, rubbing it can warm it up too. And you just want to see it every day, 15 minutes every day. Is it changing? And if it's softening, if it's going away, all of a sudden it starts draining, or all of a sudden there's relief. Or if you did have something that was really fiery, it would hurt. And, pain is not, we call cancer a silent killer. So it doesn't really have a lot of pain association. So it might be like a little hot pocket, little cystic pocket in your tissue where fire is trapped. That's how, honestly, I'm going to give it in perspective. That's how dogs get hot spots, is when their lymph isn't moving. That's why they get them a lot, like in their hind legs or inner thigh or butt, or on their spine, because those are areas where lymph is. Well, it's everywhere, but that's where lymph nodes are. And so, our fire gets stuck and becomes cystic from sitting too long. And those hurt, and they hurt a lot. But just giving you this isn't telling you you don't have cancer, because you don't know, and you do have to get checked. But it doesn't have a pain association specifically. There could be other reasons why there's pain in that area, like sluggish lymph, but these are the things we look for. Almond shape, soft, like a firm pillow. It's malleable. It moves. It's, moves under your finger every direction. If you stay in the tissue and keep following it, you're going to be able to follow along through the vessels to another node, and they're clustered. And often those three that are paired, if you get really dry, things tighten up and they'll clump up together and you'll get a cluster of three. And those scare people too. It's called matting. It's fascia. Our fascia mats, like muscle getting stuck on bone, if it gets too dry, so sometimes there's a bunch matted together and it feels like a big lump too. So I'm not telling you you're not going to find lumps and glunks and variations. It's just, can they change? Can you move any pain if there is pain? And the things that just start not feeling like everywhere else, and they're out in left field, and they're like hard and porous or larger than everything else and kind of too rubbery and thick, when you start noticing variations, then And I have a great story of this, just somebody I adore who was my client. and is my client. And, she kept asking the question, how am I going to know though? Like, these are all lumps. There's mammary glands in a breast tissue. There's mammary glands, there's milk ducts, and then there's lymph all over, including the armpit, all the way down through the pec on the side. And how will I know? These all feel lumpy, because she had a little bit more sluggish lymph and it was more lumpy, And I said, you just would know. And she didn't have any history in her family either, but she just was really into, like, I want to know, I need to know. And sure enough, she was doing her breast, picking up her breast and rotating it every direction between her thumbs and her fingers, like really put that tissue, no matter your size, put that tissue up into your hand and roll and check every direction, all 8 pieces of the pie, from north to south to east to west and all in between. And she found something. And she said, DeAnna, the moment I found that, it felt nothing like anything else I'd ever felt in all of the work, the scrubs, the massages you've been giving me, the gua sha. It felt like nothing else. And she caught it really early on, because she was just doing those general breast checks and getting to know herself and touching herself, which she had not spent a lot of time doing. And it was absolutely detectable, but low grade. And she is fabulously healthy to this day. So early detection is everything. And I have found in my work that a lot of hands can detect things that even the machines can't. And then there's times when the machines can detect things that the hands cannot. So it's a pairing. So I want to be clear about that. And we'll see if there's more questions. If you want to guide me anywhere, Andrea or Molly. But I want to be clear that there are some really beautiful ways to do these breast care. And one is your hands. And the other one is going to be looking at thermography. I think it's very general, but I still very much like it, because I like having a thermal graph of my chest and my breast area, because it actually detects things in my armpit a little and my upper channels too. So it's like the whole region is lit up in different colors to tell me where I'm cold and blue, or where I'm really flared and inflamed and hot, So I think it has its value. And then there's, 3D imaging, ultrasound, and ultrasounds in general. But if you can find the 3D imaging, it's the best technology we have at this moment. But an ultrasound in your gynecologist's office is not a bad idea. And they can look every single direction, and the monitor's right there. So you get to watch, you get to ask. And I literally say, hey, wait a minute, can I move my breast over here? Can you look there? What is that? What is that? What is that? And I've learned a lot from, what is that? And then the other one is going to be, doing a mammogram. I'm not totally against them. They're way less radiation than they used to be. So I'm not somebody who's like anti, but I can only tell you my own personal, and I do the others. I do all 3 of those others. And I won't do a mammogram unless there's something that won't change, won't go away, shows up on one of those graphs. I can't handle it in, say, 3 months' time, unless I feel like there's an emergency, and I'll go immediately and I will get one. But I don't plan on doing those routinely. I trust the ultrasounds more. I think they tell me more. But I'm also someone who does not have breast cancer genetics in my family. So it might really be a different true picture for you if you're someone who has, genetics that relate to your lymphatic system and to cancer itself. And then, why not know? Why not know and do everything you can to know you're safe? So those are some of the ins and outs that I would give everybody. I hope everybody knows my breast lymphatic care class from the Women's Herbal Symposium. It's actually three hours long, because I go off in there, everything you'd want to know about the lymph system, and then connecting it to breasts and women, because it was at the Women's Herbal Symposium. So just a heads up, please watch that no matter who you are. But, know that I was in a very specific focused group for that particular class. But there's still lots of things you could learn no matter who you are about lymph in the chest, because breasts are there and we're not much different other than the amount of tissue, you know? But yeah, that, you know, what is it? 50% off, I think, right now for the whole month. So there you go. That makes it very, very cheap because it was already inexpensive. So that would not be a hard one to get a hold of and learn more about what I'm talking about.
Here's a question I have for you. How early can someone start checking their breasts, given that like puberty can have the body go through changes, and, you know, someone might feel a little more alarmed than maybe they need to. So what would you recommend on the teenage years? When is it good to kind of understand what's happening?
Okay. Really good question. I'll take us back to my most researched region of the areola, my breast care area of the Women's Herbal Symposium. That's where I've really done most of my personal research and had my, you know, my hands and my head and my heart on, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of breasts and chest tissue in multiple different situations, right? Group of 400 women 3 times a year. I'm going to learn a lot. And then to go to this question, I love this question. There's 2 layers to it. How old, you know? So as you know, with your own daughter, you know, this area is open to everyone there. And there's children of all ages, from baby up in, you know, some children have grown up there every single year. And as they grow up, I give them jobs. So we're here doing sacred work and loving people and teaching how to do breast checks and holding space for women in their time of need around their breasts. And we have all these children running around and coming up to the massage table with their little heads right at the edge of the table, just staring at the breasts and my hands massaging it. It is so adorable. So a part of me wants to say there is no age limit on when you start. And I'll tell you one reason why this is a precious thing, because it makes me cry, because we have shame around our breasts and we have all kinds of social norms around breasts. And there are no 2 breasts alike, even my own too. And we have got to get young people. And there's young, you know, young boys there too, you know, up until about age 9 when they become hormonal. I want everyone to join in. I'm even like, those boys will be over there and I'm like, come in. What is the problem? And I even say to them, you want me to check your chest? You know, and it's amazing how many of those little 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds want to get on that table and they want to learn how to do this. And everyone should be able to not only do it for themselves, but do it for each other. So that is precious. And we got to get comfortable with touch and comfortable with our lymph. And our lymph is one of the first, our immune system is one of the first things to ever get created in our bodies when we're in the womb. We have little tiny baby lymph nodes and little baby blood vessels. You should look at the book, The Architecture of Man and Woman. Oh my gosh, brilliant, brilliant book of ultrasounds. And it has a picture of a mama with a big womb and there's a baby inside and you can see all its little lymph nodes next to hers in her spine. It is so phenomenal. So we need to know about our immune systems. Think about that in today's age. We need to know about our immune. We need to know the immune system is the lymphatic system. It is the river that the immune system is using as its thoroughway. And you can't be too young for that. And unfortunately, you're really never too young for cancer either. And so we do have, you know, too many children suffering with cancer. And
yeah, Molly said that she knew 2 14-year-olds who had lumps removed.
That's right. That's right. And so I just think there should be no limit. And this should be a like salt scrub with your children when they're little tinies. I mean, do you know how lovely it is to have a 2-year-old be able to play in salt and oil that you made? Put a sheet down, secure your space. Know you're going to be cleaning up, but scrub me down. They get to know your body, and then they get to know their body, and then you get to know each other's bodies together. And it just opens up conversation and ease of touching self. I'm back to touching yourself. This is really where the problem lies. Really, honestly. And how many women just sit there bawling. Molly has seen it with me. Bawling there at the symposium, being like, oh my God, I don't even touch myself here. I don't even love this area. Like, I need to be able to investigate and know. And I go, yeah, know thyself. In my body. This is my body. I get to investigate and explore and get to know. And yes, Molly knows this story too, but you know, I met a 19-year-old the second time I did breast checks at the symposium, which was now 15 years or so ago, but the second one, and she had the tiniest little hard porous nugget, like the size of a BB, and it was not okay. And I kept thinking in my heart, oh my, and she was just like, tell me everything. I want to know about the lymph. I want to do this work someday. She was just, oh, healthy, vibrant, involved, young adult. And I found this tiny BB and I kept saying, oh, I hope it's a calcification. You know, I hope, oh God. But I knew, I was like, this doesn't feel right. And I just couldn't, I was like, how am I going to find the words? I don't want to scare this person. I'm not here to diagnose, but I am totally dedicated to be, if I'm going to be doing breast checks or putting my hands on people, I have to be honest about what I find so that I help them to go get the help they need beyond me. And I was just like, what am I going to do to keep this woman inspired and not scare her? And then her mom came over and I was like, all of a sudden, I just was like, oh, she's here with her mom. Okay, I could have this dialogue with her and her mom. And we're here all weekend. And I could make time to make sure I have this dialogue and commit to doing this. And I knew I couldn't wait long. What if they leave? And so I just loved her up and taught her everything she needed to know. I told her there was this little piece I didn't like. I didn't want her to gua sha it just yet. And could we, you know, with your mom, you mind if we, you know, have dinner together? And I'll, you know, you're so excited. I'll teach you more. And that's what I did. And I sat down and and I just said, I just really, I need to be honest about something I found. It's my duty. I really hope I'm wrong. And that's what I tell people. I hope I'm wrong, or I hope it's like this other idea that it could be. I hope it's calcification. You know, I hope I'm wrong, you know. But, you know, I needed to get a doctor on board, and her mom, like, I saw them on Monday before leaving. Her mom was like, we already called. We got an appointment in 3 days. We'll let you know. And I got a call back and I started working with them. And it was pre-stage 1 breast cancer, and it was aggressive, and she got it under control. And the most beautiful thing is, and I think maybe because Molly's one of the drummers, you know, at the symposium, so I think she might have been at this campfire, but I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years later, that adult woman now stood up and told everybody at the campfire about her story and just how she was so happy to be alive and, you know, how it had been found there at the symposium, and just what a gift. And that was just probably one of the most pivotal moments, because I kept putting on the line, like, what if I'm not catching things? What if I don't know enough? What if I'm like, I'm only extra bonus. I'm only another way to look. And I was really struggling, and that changed everything. That changed everything. I was like, no, we have all got to be able to make choices, decisions, and know right from wrong, or what is okay and not, and be able to make appointments with doctors or get labs or do what we want to do from there. And I think that's missing. So we're talking prevention versus intervention, both extremely important in this conversation. Intervention, allopathic medical medicine, love it, because when you want intervention and you want to live, it's there. And yes, it has its complications, but it's there. And guess what? Prevention is there and can keep you sustained so you don't have to intervene anything, but it has its complications and it has its weaknesses, but it's there. So they're equals, weaknesses and strengths, and then we all have to make decisions on what part of both of these worlds do we want in our life, and where is your boundary around intervention versus prevention, And I also say, I have never had breast cancer, so I don't know what decision. People are like, well, what would you do? You'd go natural? And I'm like, I think, I don't know. I really don't know that I can say that unless I was there, because that's a situation that becomes extremely timely and according to who and what is going on, and where you're at the moment and what you feel in that moment. What does your head and heart say at that moment? And I don't think we can be making decisions about things we don't have on where we would stand. We got to make those decisions if and when those happen, and then try to prevent them from happening. Yeah. So I think women of all ages, boys of all ages, we got to move our lymph. We got to do it for virus too, and infections and bacterias. Not just mutating cells, not just the big head honcho cancer. We got to be making these decisions like for our immune health. We are a very large population and we are going to have not only be safe together and hopefully have some more boundaries, 6 feet apart, great boundary, wear our masks like Andrea needs to do right now within where she is in public. Why not? It's simple stuff. Respect each other, and then everybody gets to make their choices and we get to be safe together. So, yeah.
So we have a question from a viewer here. Amara is asking you to talk about some of the ways they would work with chest post-mastectomy. So Amara has had a mastectomy, but is now having small cancer recurrence bumps. So can you talk about what techniques you might offer?
Okay. This is a good one. I highly suggest the YouTube. It's free, but the video that Andrea was speaking of. What was the name of that video?
That is, I think, Just Care for Flatties. I can post the link.
Yep. And that's what I did with Molly. It's really good for kind of some ins and outs of post mastectomy care. And then you have the added situation going on where there are some new cancer cells even within that space. So this is a very involved question. So I'm going to have to give you general answers. This would be a really good, like, where do you live? You want to do a remote? You want to come to my therapeutic yurt? Are you local? This would be something that would, really be a bigger picture of how to make sure cancer, if possible, is not reoccurring in your life. So this is a bigger question, right? But really what I'm hearing in this question that I feel like I can very confidently answer is, can you be working on your chest area and this whole upper diaphragm and rib cage? Can you be working on all this, including your armpit, as far as scar tissue, or perhaps like some of the things that happen as puckering, where the scar has a little bit of fluid stuck? Can you work on this while there is active cancer cells? And I think that's really what I'm hearing here. So what I want to say is, you'll know, you're going to be told by your doctor where that epicenter is. So you're not going to gua sha, you're not going to cup. These are things that I routinely do for scar tissue. post-surgery, but you're not going to gua sha cup around right on that particular area. But you are going to want to open the floodgates all around that breast tissue. Meaning, how's your armpit? If it's not in the armpit, which is a common area. So it might be there. But how about under the, under where the nipple was, or if you, have your nipple still under that region, so 6 o'clock, these are all things you could still be breaking down some scar tissue, but you're going to need to do it with your hands. And I'm going to highly suggest you do it with 2 drops of helichrysum, my favorite anti-cancer plant so far. You don't want to overuse it. It's very strong. It's 1 drop in the morning, 1 drop at night. Really, more is not going to help you. And even sometimes I'll say 1 drop, just make sure, it's feeling good. It's not going to burn or anything. It's just strong and expensive, so you don't need much. But I would be on helichrysum in that epicenter, directly on it. Leave that area alone, and you still need to open the floodgates of that river, the lymph, all around that region. One of the things in Ayurveda that I have learned, and I've been kind of tracking this to see if it's true. I've had 2 acupuncturists tell me it's the same theory in Chinese medicine. I like to ask around and not just Ayurveda says this, but, what's the consensus too, culturally. But one of the things I do know in the world of oncology in Ayurveda is that there's no way something would have gotten, trapped in an area unless there was something going on in the lymphatic river that feeds that area. So, that's something to think of, is like the river isn't able to feed to the stream. So the stream, to the creek. So then the creek can't feed to the stream, or the river can't make it to the ocean, depending on its channel. And then the creek runs dry, or a dam, floods it all back, and then you got a clog. A dam is like a clog. You might have gravelly, dry riverbank and there's no flow, and immunity is a river. Rivers are liquid. Lymph is a liquid tissue, so is blood. Those are 2 liquid tissues we have of our 7 tissues. And so there's not enough liquid, there's a dam in the river, or there is just fire running through that river, inflammation. That could be from multiple different things, vices, acidic, anger, autoimmune, lots of things. Being on too many medications is very inflammatory. But also, smoking too much cannabis is quite inflammatory, even though it's an anti-inflammatory because it's smoke. So all of these things, alcohol, we have to think about our vices, our food choices, our emotions. You could catch on fire, and then that's really how our cells mutate. So is that river all around that epicenter? How dry is it? Scar tissue is really cold. How dry and gravelly is it? How sore and inflamed is it? Or how, thick and kind of boggy and maybe getting edema, like the people who from mastectomies get, edema trapped in their arms. That is all from this river not being able to flow from your hands to your elbow, up your forearm and up to your upper arm, and then get to the drain to drain. So it's flooding back and becoming edemic. So all of these things are complications with a mastectomy. And I'm just trying to generally give you the range of how do we build trust that it's okay to start massaging and tenderizing and opening, so that epicenter gets your immune system to come to its rescue and still be able to support you and stop the mutating of cells. So that's kind of what I feel is ethically proper and safe to say here, for a, very important topic, but specific topic, But again, we can move our lymph even if we have cancer. So it's very important to keep your lymph moving And don't forget about your lower lymph, you know, because we got to get all this in our legs and our pelvis, and our breasts are secondary tissue to our reproductive. So our reproductive is the primary system. And then our chest and our breast or our nipples and the sensation even of our nipples, yes, it's connected to your nerves, but it's definitely connected to the hormones that flow from your reproductive system. And again, this is not a gender relation. This is everybody. Yeah.
Now, we don't have too much time left, but Amara does have a follow-up question.
Yes.
If the gua sha was used on new lumps before finding out that those lumps were cancerous, can you comment on the risk of that?
Yeah, I've had to really track this one. That's a really good question. I've had to track it a lot, even just for the integrity of my work. Like, what if I'm working on something and, you know, I'm like breaking it up and it's dripping down into their system? I've had the same wondering, like, what if I, you know, caused a problem? So I have spent many Integris years looking at this, and I still to this day do not have an example of that happening. So that's the good news. Like, I can't look back, and I try to be so honest as a practitioner because I want to learn, even if I did not do something right. I am human. But, you know, I've really looked in and, you know, somebody comes there like, oh my gosh, I got cancer, you know, will you help me? And I'm like, whoa, I've known them 15 years. This has happened. Oh, I've known them 15 years. Like, you know, I've had to say, did I do something? And then the other part of me that's like, how could I not know? How could I have not caught that? You know? But sometimes these things happen really, really quickly and grow very quickly. The thing I would say is I just haven't seen it happen. You know, I have not seen a situation where it flooded into the bloodstream and became another issue. And the other thing is I usually tell people, like, you know, it's okay to, you know, if you find something that doesn't feel like any other thing in your breast, like you're like, that's lymph, that's lymph, that's lymph. Whoa, what is that hard thing? You're not really trying to just break down that hard thing. You're going to try to open up all the lymph in that area, and you're going to want to get some tests. So that's not when I would tell you to gua sha. You know, and it wouldn't be where I would gua sha either with a client. I'd be like, that one we got to check. Like, let's keep moving your lymph everywhere else, but like that one needs to get checked. I'm not going to, you know, find some hard, especially if it's hard, porous, gravelly, like a chunk of hard. That's nothing to mess with. I would never tell someone to gua sha that to even see if it would change. And then maybe the other thing I can let you know, and I've confirmed this with a few different oncologists I've spoke to, has agreed that if you did have, you know, those little porous bits, you know, can be quite aggressive. But when we make a tumor, you know, not only are they thicker and harder, and they've got little like scar tissue kind of attaching to your chest plate, but you try to gua sha them, you try to break them down like it's a lymph node, you know, and yes, we're talking about it being a cancer tumor. You're trying to break it down. And I usually say, if it's not changing, if it doesn't feel like anything else in your tissue and it's not changing in 3 to 4 days, you know, with general mild massaging and gua sha, you need to go get it checked before you continue. And I've never had any of those either. And the oncologists I've talked to are like, it's an encapsulated tumor. It ain't going nowhere. You know, like it's not going to change, and it's not going to break up, and it's not going to drain into your system. It's encapsulated. So those are some of the answers I have gotten. I think there's so many still unknown terrains. I just, you know, and I'm in it for this long. I still think there's unknown terrains in every direction, holistically and allopathically. So just whatever you can add up for yourself, and whatever feels right is where you go. But yeah, I have not had a situation where that has happened. And yeah, but the harder and the more rock-like, leave it alone and get to the doc, because it's, that's probably a little more serious. And again, I'm going to cross my fingers right now and I'm going to hope it's a calcification, but that may not be, and those, we're not going to gua sha. But if you were working on a general tumor, I touch them, I soften them, I help to just kind of make sure there's no lymph nodes matted on them. I move the lymph all around that area, and then I'm just like, I think you should get a doc appointment. You should get your gynecologist within 2 weeks. And I'd love a call. When would you like that to be? Like I kind of get them to commit to themselves through me, because it's their life, not mine, but I'm definitely usually a little more serious about how different it feels. And that gua sha just does not want to move under my hand. So I trust my hands too. When that gua sha is like, I'm like, kinesiology. That's like my muscle testing. And I do muscle testing as a body worker. Where do my hands say it's okay, go? And where do my hands say, no way? So, but that's an instinctive or intuitive part. I just don't like to leave that out because it's important too.
Well, as always, the time goes so quickly. Thank you all for joining us today. If you like what you saw, make sure to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. In the meantime, check out our podcast. It's got really great compilations of what you can learn here. Follow us on Instagram and on Facebook as well. And you can always submit your questions on our website or on Facebook, or you can come and join us live and submit your questions here. So I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you all. Hope you join me in the new year for my body mapping. I'll be teaching it once again, and it is just some amazing foundations for all you would need to know in the ins and outs of your health, according to Ayurveda and the elements. So please look those dates up and join me for that. See you next time.